In Unit 6, Lesson 6, first graders are solving story problems that compare two groups of data. We'll be using comparison bars to do this. Because we are using two groups of data, you will hear the phrases more than and fewer than. For today's lesson, you received 6-6 practice page and Unit 6, Lesson 6 workbook page. I'm using the practice page to demonstrate, and you will use the workbook page to complete at home. Using comparison bars is like picturing the groups of data lined up in a row and matched like we did in last week's lesson. I will show you that as we start in problem 2 first. So problem 2 says, the grocery store has 8 checkout lanes. The corner store has 5 checkout lanes. How many fewer checkout lanes does the corner store have than the grocery store? Because the amounts of the two groups of data are given, we can label the bars once we know which group has more. So I'm going to read those two sentences again. It says the grocery store has 8 checkout lanes. The corner store has 5 checkout lanes. So I know the grocery store has 8, that's more. So I'm going to give this longer bar to the grocery store, and I'm going to write a G on that line. The corner store has 5 checkout lanes, so it gets the smaller bar, and I'm going to use a C for corner store. All right, now the story also told me that the grocery store has 8 checkout lanes. That information was already given, so I'm going to fill in that line. 8 checkout lanes. The corner store has 5 checkout lanes. All right, so the unknown in this story is the number that goes in the oval. So I like to turn that line into a box so we can see that that's unknown. That's the answer that's going to go here in the box at the bottom. So the oval shows the difference or the extra. So last week we had all of our groups of data were lined up and matched. So I can draw that just so that you guys can picture that. And then if it's easier for you to use the numbers, you can go ahead and use that strategy. So if there's 5 checkout lanes at the corner store, I can draw 5 circles right inside this rectangle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 8 checkout lanes at the grocery store, and I can draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I could match those up. Match, 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 match. And then I can see that there are 3 that are not matched up. So that's the number that goes in the oval. So the other way to figure out what goes in the oval, what the difference or the extra is to just say 5, 5, and then count on 6, 7, 8. And so you could do that without seeing the circles if you're able to do that. So the corner store does not have this 1, 2, 3 checkout lanes that the grocery store has. So it has 3 fewer checkout lanes. So I would take this answer then and put it in the box. 3, but we need to make sure our label is correct. And the question in the story says, how many fewer checkout lanes? How many fewer checkout lanes? So I need to include the word fewer in my label. 3, and it ends up being a long label to write. How many fewer checkout lanes, 3 fewer checkout lanes. Next story problem we're going to work on is problem number 1. In problem number 1, the number for the larger bar is unknown. It says Jaden catches 5 fish. Devin catches 4 more fish than Jaden. How many fish does Devin catch? So the first thing I do is look to label the 2 bars, figuring out which person caught more fish and which one caught fewer fish. So I know the story tells me that Jaden caught 5 fish, but I don't know which bar that is. So reading further, it says Devin catches 4 more than Jaden. Devin catches more than Jaden. So Devin catches more than Jaden. That means Devin needs the larger bar. Jaden needs the smaller bar. So I put a J for Jaden. And looking back at the story, it says Jaden catches 5 fish. So I can fill this smaller bar in with a 5. But if I read the story, it does not say Devin catches 4 fish. It says Devin catches 4 more fish than Jaden. So we do not know how many fish Devin caught. We just know he caught 4 more than Jaden. So that's the number that goes here. So if you take Jaden's 5 fish and you add 4 more, you'll be able to find out how many Devin caught. So I like to tell my students that this is kind of like a math mountain, and you can draw those lines at home too, where if you take these 2 numbers and add them together, you're going to get the number that's in the longer bar. And if you want to draw those circles again to show you how they match up, you can, or you can say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can see that that is going to equal 9. You could also draw just the 4 circles under here to help you with your counting on strategy. So this number 9 is the number that goes into the box over here. And how do we figure out what label we're going to use? We look back at the question in the story. How many fish? 9 fish. Okay, the last story we're going to look at is problem number 3. In problem number 3, the number for the smaller bar is unknown. It says Jenna paints 7 fewer walls than Penny. Penny paints 15 walls. How many walls does Jenna paint? So the story tells us that Penny paints 15 walls, but we need to know which bar is Penny's. Jenna paints 7 fewer walls than Penny. I just look at this part. Jenna paints fewer walls. So if Jenna paints fewer walls, Jenna is going to have the smaller bar, and Penny gets the longer bar. And then looking back at the story again, you have to go back and forth a lot of times in these story problems. Penny paints 15 walls. Penny paints 15 walls. It does not say that Jenna paints 7 walls. It says Jenna paints 7 fewer walls than Penny. So 7 is the number that goes in the oval. And this one is the number we don't know, the smaller bar. We don't know how many walls does Jenna paint. So that's the unknown. Now to figure out this unknown, you can think again about how this is kind of like a math mountain. These 2 numbers at the bottom have to go together to make to equal the long bar. So we could think about this number, an unknown, plus 7 equals 15, or you can think about 15 take away 7 would equal this number. So I'm going to say the partner that I know and count on until I get to the total. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I have 8 fingers, so the unknown in the smaller bar is 8. Now I'm going to move that number over to the answer box, and I need to figure out what my label is going to be. How many walls? 8 walls. Okay, first graders, you are going to work at home to solve story problems on this page, Unit 6, Lesson 6. You'll notice that there are problems on here that have the larger bar is unknown. Some of the problems have the oval, the difference or the extra is unknown, and some of these story problems have the smaller bar unknown.